And the other points, I'd like to introduce Representative Jean Ward.
An additional solution is to bring equity to the classroom in terms of the amount of time that our kids spend learning. Right now we are 5th in the nation. I repeat, 5th last in terms of instructional time. We spend an average of 4 hours and 17 minutes in the classroom. In the mainland, in the average school in the U.S., it's 5 hours and 18 minutes. We got good teachers, we got good kids, but if they're not in the classroom, how are they going to learn? And by the way, we only spend 163 days of the year in the classroom, and that's compared to 180 to 200 in the mainland. And if we look at even some third world countries, the Philippines, Indonesia, they spend 220. So we have a crisis in Hawaii, the nation, and internationally if we look at the number of hours vis-a-vis the international scene. The point is we want to bring equity to the classroom by bringing more hours in. In fact, if anything has shown light on this is that we are at such a deficit. We can't expect our kids to excel on the tests if they're not actually in the studying times. They've done studies in mainland schools that if they have too many snow days, their scores go down. So it's no surprise that we are behind in these testing. We just haven't spent enough time in the classroom. We propose to do that in the legislative session of 2010.
And finally, a part of our KIDS Act is our strengthening of charter school laws. We, along with President Obama, we are looking at ways that we can work in a bipartisan way to look at true education reform. And his support of charter schools, which is lifting the cap, he's lifting the cap, and for us locally here, which is to figure out how to get fair funding to charter schools. I think that this is a way that we'd like to move forward in our legislative session. So just to kind of recap today some of our suggestions for improvement and our solutions long-term and short-term. Our short-term solution is to reopen the contract. We all sign on this, we will all be signing on this letter to reopen the contract. Now, in the education furlough information briefings, we have gotten from those involved, the HSTA, the DOE, and the BOE, that they're open, that they would be willing to take a look at that. As well as the governor has come out and she has said that she would be willing to open the contract. So we should move forward on that. The second thing is don't settle for less. We need to reinstate all 17 days. And what we're hearing from the local level is that this is what they would like as well. Number 3, long-term solution. Don't forget, we need restructuring. We need the ability for the people at the local level to be able to have control and to be able to have a say in how these decisions are being made. And that's why we are proposing, and we need accountability. Accountability is number 1. So we're opening up for questions of any of us here. Most of us have signed the petition. Since we signed the original letter to call for a special session, my understanding, my hope was that we could come back to the table and we could look at a variety of options. Since then, it has been mostly focused on how do we raise more funds. In that case, I am not for a special session. However, I believe that we can do and make good ground by just following our suggestions here without going into a special session.
There's a lot of blame going on right now between the various parties. How do you think the governor's been handling the situation?
You know, the blame game is going to happen. You know, people are upset. What we're here to focus in on is our solutions to move forward. People are going to, you know, I think the governor went through, as she explained, that this was something that all of the parties were in favor of. And so when it came back to her, she said, you know, is this what everyone agrees upon? And her primary, I believe, her primary look at this was to make sure that we could balance a budget. We're now looking at how are we going to move forward? Reopening the contract is our first suggestion that we should move forward with. And that would allow for these programs and these positions that are outside of the classroom level to be looked at and to prioritize the classroom level spending.
Just to add 2 points to that. One is, when you live in a roundhouse, you can never be cornered. What we have is a system where the blame game keeps going around and around and around, and the buck, as Harry Truman would say, has to stop somewhere. And in the educational plant, if you will, it stops nowhere. The second thing is, all of you know that a horse is a camel designed by a committee. The way that the governor started out with, let's take a reduction of 1 to 3% for the lower echelon in the teachers, to the higher paid to take an 8% cut. That was thrown out, and then we went to pay cuts, we went to furloughs. This is a horse that became a camel because there were so many people and so much of this done by a committee rather than by leadership, and because there's no accountability. When you're in a roundhouse, you can't get cornered, and right now nobody is cornered, and that's why we want to change.
The budget needs to be balanced, but I think that's what we're trying to say. I opened earlier is that, yes, people are taking furloughs across all departments. The difference is we don't want instructional time, and I think the governor made it clear that she never expected instructional time. So the budget does need to be balanced. That's what the executive branch must do. That is what their duty is to do. But it shouldn't be on instructional time. That's, I think, what our message is. Thank you.
Chime in on your question, Mahealani. I don't think a lot of parents realize that the contract is negotiated between management and labor, and that's the DOE, the Department of Education, and the union, which is HSTA. And those two parties hammered out the contract. The governor did sign off on it, but this was a mutually agreed upon contract, later ratified by the members of HSTA. The contract now comes to the legislature for funding, and so people are blaming legislators too for the mess that we're in, but we were not in on the negotiations. We come in on the back end and fund the contract. Thank you.